Hello, I'm Lloyd Moyer. In a previous video, I milled a log with my chainsaw, got it ready for turning, and what you're going to see today is me turning one of the blanks that I cut from that. I chopped the corners off on my bandsaw, just barely, and now you're going to see me rough it out. So enjoy. So here's my piece of maple here, and I've drilled out the center hole, and I'm just going to start the lathe, turn the speed all the way down, and then turn it back up as slow as it'll go, and then I'm just going to feed the center screw onto the hole until it catches. And I'll shut the lathe down, lock the spindle, and tighten it up. This started out as a square, and I did just lop the corners off, but it's still pretty uneven. I actually think I'm going to bring my my tailstock up for a little bit of stability today. And I'm going to rough out with my my 5/8 inch deep fluted bowl gouge, just because it's my heavy duty tool. I often like to rough out with a smaller tool, but when the pieces start to get a little bit bigger, I tend to prefer a heavier duty piece. And this is still pretty uneven, so I'm going to start slowly. This is about 400 RPMs. And I'm going to start with a pull cut. I'm going to start by getting this flat face here actually flat. That's probably good enough. As far as how far out I want to get it flat. Come back in towards the middle. And now I'm going to take the corners off. For efficiency and ease, it's always a good idea to get the piece as close to round as you can before you get it on the lathe. But if you don't have a big bandsaw, which I don't, you just got to get as close as you can. And doing it this way is fine, just takes a little longer. When I first started turning, the the way I was shown, or the way I figured to do this was to go all the way across here and take a little bit off until it got round. But I figured out before too long that it's much easier to find to make a flat spot, which I did here, and then you go forward this way. So you're taking, a little bit off instead of, a little bit, instead of getting a really heavy bump every time you hit the tool, you're getting just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit until it's round. It works much better and is much easier. And that didn't really make any sense, I realized. I'm sorry, let me show you. So instead of going straight across like that, you go this way. So you're starting from a place that's flat. And you're making that flat area a little bigger, one cut at a time. The lathe is going quite slowly right now, so the cut has to be much slower. Before I move the tool rest, I'm just going to go in here and I want to mark where my chuck is going to be. Also a good idea, especially when you're on a screw chuck like this, on a slightly larger piece. Always a good idea to get a foot cut first, so that if something happens, if something happens and the wood comes off of the screw, you can remount it without too much trouble. Now, I may make that foot a little bit deeper than that, but in a jam, that'll do. Let's see if I can bring the speed up a bit. That'll make it easier. So now going just under 600. All right, got to move the tool rest. When the wood starts to move faster and you're cutting uneven areas, it's a good idea to change your hand position. I don't know if you can see my hand, but I'm going from how I'm just comfortable holding the tool like this. It's how I learned and it's how I've always done it. But when these chips start coming off, they hit the heel of my hand there and that just hurts. So I switched to holding the tool like this against the tool rest, sort of an underhand hold. And that keeps me from getting smacked. With this bowl, I was thinking of sort of a wide base, a flat base, sort of a fruit bowl. So something with a large base that's going to be very sturdy and relatively steep sides. Now, of course, that may change by the time I go to finish it. That's just what I'm seeing in my mind's eye. Wood is really very pretty. I don't know if the you people that are watching this, you folks that are watching, have experienced this, but I have people tell me all the time that I'm talented, and I always say, honestly, one of the great things about wood turning is that you really don't need talent to do it well. It doesn't mean that people don't have talent. You can have talent in areas of it, but if you know how to hold the tool, you can do it, which is what I think is really great about it, that you don't need talent, to be a fine art painter, to be, Rembrandt or Picasso or Andy Wyeth or, somebody like that. You have to have some inherent talent. I can't be that. I'm not talented in painting or drawing. But in wood turning, and I'm not saying that talent doesn't come into play, but it's possible. The first time you step up to a lathe, if somebody shows you how to hold the tool, how to move, etc., you can make something. That's what I really love about this. Because I'm a creative person, and I've gotten over, however many, 35 years or whatever it is, in doing this, I've gotten good at it, but I was never talented. So I can do something creative and rewarding that I don't need talent for. Again, I feel that I've gotten good at it. I also often say, well, when you learn from your mistakes and you mess up as much as I have, you're bound to learn a lot, which I have. I'm just flattening out the back here, which is actually quite uneven. An extra cut with the chainsaw that left a ridge on here, so I'm just evening that out. There we go. A useful bowl that what I'm trying to make here. I also like to try and have something to grab a hold of at the rim. I may not have it in this roughed out piece, but in the finished piece I will. Just because I need to get down to flat. So I'm coming in from the back like this, you know, I'm cutting in the wrong direction, but if I were to cut along here and go all the way out, these fibers in here are not supported over here, so I'll just tear them out and I'll have to come back and clean it up anyway. I think this is what's called a shape crack there. Maybe. We'll see. See if that comes out. It's certainly there. I'll take this down a little bit more. Can't tell if this is this here. I can't tell if that's just some tear out or if it's a split. Maybe a split, but I'm actually going to try and get a clean cut there and see what it looks like. Speeding up to just under 1,000 now. I think that is what they call a shape crack, which is a crack along the growth ring. But this wood has proved to be pretty stable. So I'm going to deal with it when it's cured, when it's dry. Again, I realize I'm cutting in the wrong direction there. For those of you who may not know, when I say the wrong direction, if you're cutting, when you're making a bowl like this, an end grain or a face grain piece, when you cut this way, you're pushing against fibers that are not supported, so they'll push backwards. Whereas when you're cutting this way, the fibers push back into the wood that's behind them, so they'll cut cleanly. Again, I'm roughing out, so I'm not really that worried about it. Before I turn this around, I am going to pull the tailstock away. And I'm just going to cut this little nub off of here. And then lastly, I just want to check and make sure that that the chuck is going to go in there smoothly. Should. Sort of ragged edge will make the bowl sit not quite perfectly in the chuck. So get it as close to clean as you can. Again, I'm roughing out, so I'm, it's not imperative. But when I come back to redo it, to turn it again, I'll want it to seat as nicely as possible. All right. And again, you see how I have, this is not a perfect curve along here. I actually may come back and, I think I will. I'm gonna, not something I really need to worry about, but just for the sake of good practice and I'm gonna try and even it out a bit. And you see how because the foot was not perfect, it's it's a little bit out of whack. Wasn't planning on using this scraper, so it's a little dull. As you can see by the tear out. So I'm going to move my tool rest in here kind of as far as I can. The closer you are to the center of your tool rest, to where the post is, the more support you have in the when you're turning. And it's a big, heavy tool rest, and I get plenty of support anyway, but the closer you are to center, the better. Just going to even out this first off. Okay. Now, again, there are sort of two schools of how to hog out the center of one of these, something like this. One is you make this hole and you just keep making the hole bigger until you get out here. The other is, which I often do, is to start at the edge and work your way in until you have a cone here at the middle, and then you take the cone away. I think on this, I'm going to mark where I want the outside to be. This bowl is about 12 inches in diameter, a little less. So that's 1.25 inches. So that's about where I want my wall thickness to be, right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the outside, coming up from the bottom. 1.25 inches is about right there. So when I mark that, what I'm actually going to do is get my my depth drill here. We'll go about that deep. About there gets me to the depth that I want. And then I'll just go down to that. This is not an incredibly deep bowl, especially with a, I'm roughing it out, so I'm leaving the walls pretty thick. And take the speed up a little bit here. A little over 1200. I think. Nope. Almost to the bottom of my depth hole right there. There it is. Pushing too hard. When it kicks me back like that, it means I'm pushing too hard. And it's tearing out. Again, I'm just not that worried about it because I'm roughing out. So now if I was doing it the other way, it'd look like this. For larger bowls, I do find this way to be a bit more efficient. You have to go in and redo the wall. And obviously this is a relatively straight-sided bowl, so I have a lot to do there. Making shavings. I think I'd better move the camera. Right in the camera's right in the blast zone here. See if that's any better. Not much. All right. Now I got to switch to the scraper. Feel like I didn't measure this correctly because that's awfully thick in the bottom. So I'm going to be able to come down a good deal more. That's better. So again, a relatively flat bottomed bowl. Plenty of end grain tear out there that we'll clean up when we finish. Good. Just right. So now I'm just going to take this away and we'll be done. If I was in a hurry to get this dried, I could shove it in my my refrigerator kiln for 6 weeks or so. There is a good crack here that's going to have to get dealt with when we come back. Could go into the refrigerator kiln for 6 weeks or so, and that would be dry enough. But it's winter right now. Actually, it's New Year's Day. Happy New Year to you. So I'm not in a hurry. So I'm going to let them dry. I'm going to drop this in a big pile of shavings for about a week, and then it'll go into a paper bag with some shavings. That's actually, I haven't used the paper bag method in years, maybe decades, probably decades. And I've just recently started doing it again. So I'm going to try. That's what I'm going to do. This will come out. This comes out of the shavings after about a week, and it'll go into a paper bag for 6 months or so. See how it goes from there. So this is going to be a really pretty piece when it's done. It has some end grain tear out, does have some cracking that we'll have to deal with, but other than that, it's going to be really nice, I hope. Thanks for watching. Feel free to follow me. Ask me any questions. Happy to answer them. They're kind of fun to answer. So I've been doing this for a long time, so use my experience, please. All right. That's enough. PSA over. Thank you.